Hello and welcome to Monday's edition of Channel 51 News, August the 18th. And this is the show that will look at the mainstream, the narratives, and be able to point out to exactly where we are juxtaposed against the lived reality of what we're fighting against. So this is very unique in the independent media space. There's a lot of stories to get through today, and we'll get straight into it for you. And if you're looking for the headlines, just look across the bottom of the screen there. All the stories we're covering today are right there if you don't have time to get through the whole edition. But of course, you can like, you can subscribe, you can comment, and you can certainly share. And for our first story today, an amended statement of claim filed for the child on the 20th of January this year, with the mother acting in his place, alleged that Northern Beaches Hospital breached its duty of care when it failed to take 22 precautions. Those included failing to diagnose the mother with appendicitis on the day she first presented to the hospital and failing to perform the surgery to remove the appendix immediately. After the surgery, the precautions taken should have included performing blood tests, white blood cell count, CRP testing, an assessment by the surgical team, an ultrasound examination, and an mRNA investigation. The statement of claim alleged the documents alleged the mother should not have been discharged when she was, as the hospital should have been considered her perforated appendix, its gangrenous tip, and the free pus, and checked her inflammatory markers. She should also have been provided with antibiotics on discharge. The statement of claim alleged the hospital's failure to take these precautions caused or materially contributed to the child suffering injuries, including the consequences of being born significantly prematurely and generally bodily trauma and shock. And statement of claim alleged. On the 31st of July, the parties agreed to settle the matter with the Northern Beaches Hospital to pay a sum without admission of liability. The family requested that the amount not be made public. Northern Beaches is the only hospital in New South Wales where public services are provided by a private company, Healthscope, under a complex contract. But after years of mounting debt and a string of complaints about care standards, including the death of 2-year-old Joe Massa and a woman whose baby died in childbirth because an emergency caesarean was offered too late, the hospital went into receivership in May, with the New South Wales government trying to buy it. The federal government announced it was ramping up the fight last month by awarding $16.9 million in an initial rolling wave of contracts to 11 vendors to deliver counter-drone technologies. Unmanned aerial vehicles, or drones, are becoming increasingly used by armies, with the aircraft now responsible for 80% of all battlefield casualties in the Russia-Ukraine war, according to estimates. Drones are no longer an emerging threat, but very much a dominant one, Casey Lamb-Evans, Government Affairs Director of Drone Shield, told news.com.au. Australia is among the nations leading the charge against powerful aircraft. The announcement, part of the ADF's Project Land 156, will see at least 120 tested threat detectors and cutting-edge drone-defeating technologies rapidly introduced by the ADF. It comes amid the government's over $10 billion investment in drones over the next decade. Productivity Commissioner Chair Daniel Wood will use a major speech on Monday to call on fellow roundtable attendees to be bold as they thrash out potential reforms to kickstart Australia's flagging productivity growth, warning that failure could bust the generational bargain of handing over a better country to the future. I'm thrilled by the new appetite for economic reform that the Roundtable has created over the past 2 months, Wood will tell the National Press Club, according to a copy of his speech seen by Newswire. Ultimately, the government will be judged on its actions and the outcomes they achieve, but it has taken an important step by recognising and pursuing economic growth and the productivity that drives it as a prime goal of policy. This growth mindset and elevation of growth and the benefits it brings has been from Australian policy for too long. So we'll see how that plays out amidst all of the taxation increases that were meant to be brought up and suggested or leaked out over the past week, to which Anthony Albanese has already said that no matter what comes out, it'll be held back until after the next election. Well, meanwhile, Qantas is in strife as well. It cops a mammoth penalty for unlawfully sacking hundreds during the COVID-19 pandemic. Qantas has copped a landmark penalty after the federal court found it illegally outsourced 1,820 jobs to prevent industrial action during the pandemic. So it's been ordered to pay $90 million in penalties, including $50 million to the Transport Workers Union, after it unlawfully sacked more than 1,800 ground staff. Earlier this year, Federal Court Judge Michael Lee ordered Qantas to pay $120 million to impacted workers. Qantas faced a further penalty up to a maximum of $121 million for the decision, and Justice Lee on Monday ordered the national carrier to pay back $90 million in additional penalties for the 2020 decision. The court ordered that the unions received $50 million of that amount, with that matter to return to court at a later date to determine where the remaining amount will be paid. It's a lot of money awarded against Qantas, the unions getting their hands on it, but will the workers, the 1,820, actually get back payback? That's what remains to be seen, but hundreds of millions of dollars being forced on Qantas there. Meanwhile, in the United States, FBI Director Kash Patel has uncovered evidence of pay-to-play at the Clinton Foundation in 2016. DOJ leadership and McCabe ordered it to shut it down. We've now declassified the memo. This is proof of political interference at the highest levels. We'll hear now from John Solomon on the issue.
All right. I know there's a lot to cover. There's been a lot of moving parts. I want to start with this timeline that we were able to get our hands on yesterday. The FBI director, Kash Patel, found it recently. There are some whistleblowers that are also cooperating with the Justice Department. You've got a timeline where every time 3 separate field offices, each with career agents, one had a fully predicated criminal probe, 2 had preliminaries, they got shut down. The leaders in Washington said, you will not do this, shut it down. That was Sally Yates. The deputy director, McCabe, said, you don't do anything unless I approve it. And when they went to prosecutors to get the normal help you get, grand jury subpoenas, search warrants, every one of the prosecutors except the Little Rock office turned their back and said, you can move on, but we're not going to help you in any way. Is that a normal process? Have you ever seen something like this in the FBI before?
No, it's a kind of extraordinary when you have that type of resistance in the justice system to investigate, or not to charge, not to indict, but just to investigate a situation. And I think, what you had is 3 separate field offices with predicating information. That alone should have provided adequate interest. But you saw at the level of Department of Justice attention that the declination was provided. And then again, the deputy director of the FBI at the time, put some brakes on the investigative effort. So it chilled the environment, and everybody is fully aware of the type of sensitivity there is in making that type of investigative action. And, we saw how the whole thing kind of died on the vine.
Extraordinary scenario there where the Deputy Director of the Department of Justice and the Deputy Director of the FBI both looking to shut down the Clinton investigation probe. Well, that's not happening anymore. And in fact, on this show, Channel 51 this week in our lineup, you'll see there's a rundown. There's something on every day. From last night, Dr. Shankar Chetty, an archived interview, which was, watching it back, was just extraordinary what Dr. Chetty was able to unfold. Tonight, Rob McMullen will be on the 51st State, an Australian politician, natural law and artificial intelligence. We're going to talk about that. And tomorrow, Kathy O'Brien will be on channel51.com.au as the start of the Clinton crime series, where we'll talk about MK Ultra and secret slaves, of which she was one, and her book's Transformation is one of many that she's written. On Wednesday, I will be interviewing Dr. John Brady, also on the 51st State. He is a forensic psychologist on MK Ultra or mental disorder in high-profile cases where we've seen people killed, including in the Lee Harvey Oswald story, and Sirhan Sirhan, who killed RFK officially. Meanwhile, Thursday, Scott Wheeler will also be on. He'll be doing a story also for the Clinton crime series on Mena, Arkansas, and the Clinton Foundation. Friday, you'll get 9/11 Truth with Richard Gage, and on Saturday, Dr. William Mackus in the first of 2 interviews. That'll be on jasonqcitizen.substack. And if you'd like to support independent media, you can. Channel51.com.au is where you can subscribe. You can subscribe for free, but you will get access to also paid content, of which there is some exclusive content that will be paid there. For example, the interview upcoming with Fiona Barnett, Rachel Vaughan and Dale Holmes, which is explosive. That is a paid only venture there. And you can go to jasonqcitizen.substack.com for more, of course, on that page as well. And just $51 gets to support for an entire year. Very, very grateful for your support there. Meanwhile, in the US, and it's coming out that European leaders to accompany Zelensky of Ukraine at his meeting with Donald Trump, and Anthony Albanese joined an overnight meeting with the so-called Coalition of the Willing, whatever that is, as an ominous signs emerge about Trump's meeting with Zelensky. And so it is that it is alleged that Trump will bully Zelensky, and that's why the European leaders are going along in tow, if you can believe that. All of the NATO wannabes going on. But that is not what the case is. It is simply a narrative. Marco Rubio addressed that earlier on Sunday out of the United States.
You know, there is concern from the Europeans that President Zelensky is going to be bullied into signing something away. That's why you have these European leaders coming as backup tomorrow. Can you?
No, it isn't. That's not why they're coming as back. That's not true. No, but that's not why. That's not true. They're not coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're not coming.
That February Oval Office meeting in front of television cameras, where President Zelensky.
Do you know how many meetings we've had since then?
Oh no, I know, and I was just up in Alaska watching the one with Vladimir Putin, where a red carpet rolled out.
No, but it was Zelensky. We've had more meetings. We've had one meeting with Putin and like a dozen meetings with Zelensky. So, but that's not true. They're not coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're coming here tomorrow because we've been working with the Europeans. We talked to them last week. There were meetings in the UK over the previous weekend.
And they said President Trump was going to demand a ceasefire
as early as Thursday. No. But you said that they're coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're not coming here tomorrow. Oh, this is such a stupid media narrative that they're coming here tomorrow because Trump is going to bully Zelensky into a bad deal. We've been working with these people for weeks on this stuff. They're coming here tomorrow because they chose to come here tomorrow. We invited them to come. We invited them to come. The president invited them to come.
But the president told those European leaders last week that he wanted a ceasefire. The president went on television, said he would walk out of the meeting if Vladimir Putin didn't agree with one. He said there would be severe consequences if he didn't agree to one. He said he'd walk out in 2 minutes. He spent 3 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and he did not get one. So there's
because obviously things happened during that meeting. Well, because obviously look, our goal here is not to stage some production for the world to say, oh, how dramatic, he walked out. Our goal here is to have a peace agreement, to end this war, okay? And obviously we felt, and I agreed, that there was enough progress, not a lot of progress, but enough progress made in those talks to allow us to move to the next phase. If not, we wouldn't be having Zelensky flying all the way over here. We wouldn't be having all the Europeans coming all the way over here. Now understand, and take with a grain of salt, I'm not saying we're on the verge of a peace deal, but I am saying that we saw movement, enough movement to justify a follow-up meeting with Zelensky and the Europeans, enough movement for us to dedicate even more time to this. You talk about the sanctions. Look, at the end of the day, if peace is not going to be possible here, and this is just going to continue on as a war, people will continue to die by the thousands. The president has that option to then come in and impose new sanctions. But if he did this now, the moment the president puts those additional sanctions, that's the end of the talks. You've basically locked in at least another year to year and a half of war and death and destruction. We may unfortunately wind up there, but we don't want to wind up there. We want to wind up with a peace deal that ends this war so Ukraine can go on with the rest of their lives and rebuild their country and be assured that this is never going to happen again. That's the goal here. We're going to do everything possible to make that happen if it's doable. It will require both sides to make concessions. It will require both sides to get things they're asking for. That's how these deals are made, whether we like it or not.
Meanwhile, Ed Martin, special prosecutor at the DOJ, appeared with Maria Bartiromo and addressed Leticia James, Adam Schiff, and Russiagate.
You have criminal referrals right now on Adam Schiff, Leticia James, among others. What is the status?
Well, first of all, thanks for asking about the last 10 years. I mean, you know, when Donald Trump came into office as president, he signed an executive order saying, go and find out how government was weaponized against the citizens. When Attorney General Bondi came into office, she put a memo, put more specifics to it, and said, get to the bottom of this. She gave a specific list and a broad charge. And I have to tell you, for your viewers, we have the Attorney General Bondi has that Department of Justice spinning like a top. We've got more stuff going on. A lot of it we can't talk talk about because of the nature of it, but it's going like crazy. And one of them was, we were in a group, we're still in it, working on the Russia hoax. And Tulsi Gabbard declassified what happened, and she sent it over to us, to DOJ, as a criminal referral, and that's ongoing now. But what that was, and Maria, you're one of the earliest, I think you might be the only person, the only journalist who said early on, this is a Russia hoax. And you know, Brett had President Trump on an interview on that flight to Alaska, and in the interview, President Trump said the Russia hoax was meant to destroy the relationship with Russia, make it impossible to get things under control, get a reset, like Hillary said she wanted. So what we have in the Department of Justice now is a weaponization working group and the backing of our leadership to go and find this stuff. And so the Russia hoax, we know the birthday of the Russia hoax. It's December 8th, 2016, where the Obama administration, including Obama, said, don't put the truth out, lie, and ask the media to help us. And the Washington Post and others jumped right in. And then we had the Russia hoax that went on for 10 years. And every time they get in trouble, meaning the deep state and others, they throw another hoax out. And all we're doing at DOJ and all we're doing across the government is saying, get the truth out. And then, by the way, let's hold people accountable. And that's exactly what's going on. So when Bill Pulte sends a criminal referral over to us, and he says Leticia James and Adam Schiff, and by the way, both their lawyers have come out and talked publicly about that criminal referral. So you can talk to them about the specifics, because I'm going to tell you what we're going to do is we're going to follow the facts. Every American that has a mortgage or has other documents they sign has to follow the law. We're going to go to the very bottom of the facts. And if somebody did something wrong, we're not only going to hold them accountable, we're also going to look at everything else that they've been doing. Because when you're a liar, you lie not just on one thing. When you're a cheater, you cheat not just on one thing. When you're doing corruption, you generally don't just do it on one thing. So that's our what we're asked to do as prosecutors, and that's what we're doing.
Well, we are all waiting for accountability here. Adam Schiff went on Sunday morning programs and said there was collusion in plain sight. And he was the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, so he had to know better that there was no evidence of any collusion in plain sight. So are you saying that this criminal referral is about something completely different, about mortgage fraud? Are you looking to get him on something other than Russia collusion?
Well, I'm saying that there's a referral from Bill Pulte about a mortgage fraud, about Adam Schiff. That's publicly discussed. His own lawyers have been out there. Now there's more on Adam Schiff. And all we're going to do, again, is get to the facts of this and use all the tools that we have in our system. What we've discovered, and I know you want to ask me about some of this, in the weaponization, is that Joe Biden's Justice Department actively targeted American citizens, Catholics who went to Mass, parents who went to school boards, people who were involved in the Russia. You know, I hear from Carter Page every now and then. Carter Page, it was destroyed by the Russia hoax. And we're sitting around and pretending it's okay to say that, you know, there was a secret meeting on December 9th, 2016 in the Situation Room where they plotted the Russia hoax. And then we're going to say, oh, that was really bad. No, it wasn't really bad. It needs to be held accountable in every way we can.
Meanwhile, Maria Bartiromo dug deeper. She wanted answers on January 6th.
Well, let's talk about January 6th, because you are also investigating January 6th, which was also part of this 10 years of scandals. What have you learned?
Well, again, Attorney General Pam Bondi let us loose on this, and there's a group of us working on January 6th. What we've learned is that the federal government, the Department of Justice, but other aspects, targeted these citizens. They basically turned government on to make the hoax work. So I'm not talking about somebody that pushes a cop. That's a charge you can look at in charge. I'm talking about that the FBI and others were putting American citizens on terrorism watch lists. They were auditing their IRS tax returns. They were targeting the American people. They were taking massive amounts of resources and moving them from fighting, child trafficking and fighting real corruption and saying we have to move everybody to look at the Capitol siege. It was a political hoax that was driven by Garland, Lisa Monaco, and others. And what, again, Attorney General Bondi has said is get to the bottom of it. Some of it may not be illegal, but it's some of the worst. You know, in federal prosecutor world, we think about the importance of that role. There's a guy named Robert Jackson Anderson, who is the prosecutor guy. And what you see is Lisa Monaco's Justice Department acting in ways we've never seen before. This is going, and when we show all that, and we're writing reports regularly on it, it's not one aspect. The federal court system was used in a way. The jails were used in a way to punish people. It's foreign. They didn't do this to the terrorists after 9/11, and they were doing it to American citizens. So that's a fulsome investigation on January 6th, and it will make clear the hoax, which is really the 2020 election hoax. We were told we couldn't talk about it because of January 6th. And the whole thing has fallen apart, Maria, and it's going to get to the bottom. And the players are always the same. It's always the same. The same people on December 9th, 2016, in the Situation Room in Obama's White House are playing the same game all these years.
That's unbelievable. Real quick, what about the January 6th committee? Did they destroy evidence? Is there criminality there?
Of course. Of course, we're all in that too, and trust me, a lot of people did not get a pardon that were involved in the select committee, and they ought to be keeping an eye on their mailbox because there's a lot to be asked about.
And the pardons that were given out were done by an auto pen. Are they legitimate?
Well, I'm the pardon attorney, so I'm in that too. I can tell you we're investigating how the pardons were granted. It was not like anything in the history of America what not Joe Biden, his staffers did, not just with the auto pen, but with faking him out on the memos. More to come, Maria. I'm telling you, Pam Bondi has let us loose, and when this comes out, it'll take the whole of these people's hoaxes down, and we're doing it bit by bit, and it's fantastic.
Everything is on the table and everything is being investigated. And when you consider that it's the same cast of characters each time, I think it's worthwhile going back to this podcast with Chris Williamson interviewing Eric Weinstein, who described his meeting with Jeffrey Epstein. All roads seem to lead back to Epstein. And of course, Democrats only believe that Epstein and Trump were the only people involved in anything. Well, that's not the case, but let's have a look now because we're going to delve into the psychology. And this is really important as this week we delve into the Clintons, MK Ultra, and I'll even speak to a forensic psychologist.
You met Jeffrey Epstein once.
Yep.
Talk to me about what that's like coming face to face with somebody of that caliber.
Whatever that means. Well, one thing is that there is a physiological reaction that corresponds to this phrase that, the hair on the back of my neck stood on end. Like that's a real physiological feeling. I don't know whether the hair actually does that, but it's exactly what it feels like. You're meeting somebody who is unholy. And one of the most interesting things is that he was beckoning into a world that didn't seem to exist but for him as the doorman. I think that's one of the things that freaked out a lot of these rich people is that he felt rich in a movie sense, which is not something that you find among actually rich people. A lot of very wealthy people don't own an island. Islands are really tough to maintain. I'm obsessed with islands. And, in general, I have to be obsessed with islands that have airports run by other people because, they have populations on them. But every rich person starts to wonder, can I afford an island? Or how many jets? And if you look at Jeffrey Epstein's wealth, it was like gold beaten into gold foil so that it could cover a vast area and leave the impression of a solid gold life. But it was really probably a mid 9-figure fortune that had been used to buy islands and planes, which is not what any 9-figure person is going to do.
So you had a felt sense, an embodied sense of discomfort?
Oh, hell yeah.
And where did that come from?
The fact that he had a lipstick camera pointed at me from an art object, that he laid a table that was preposterously long and thin with a tablecloth made of an American flag to make it look like a coffin so that I would spill my coffee on the flag of my own country. I mean, the fact that he looked like a mutant Ralph Lauren with this kind of lubricious quality, and he's talking all of the science and market stuff, and nothing adds up. And there's an heiress bouncing on his knee to get her boobs to jiggle to see whether it can distract. I mean, it's like one of these crazy scenes where nothing about it was normal. There was no trace of a normal world.
Really interesting, but it goes deeper because Chris Williamson starts to make comparisons with apex predators. And this, of course, opens the door to this whole behavior where human trafficking comes from, where it leads to, and who might participate for all kinds of reasons.
Jeffrey Epstein, super genius financier, was not a thing that existed. Where did the money come from? You're going to mumble Lex Wexner? Okay, so that's what you mumble. But then, there's this missing fortune of Robert Maxwell and this fortune of Jeffrey Epstein that we can't explain. Are those the same fortune? It's like a conservation of money principle, that if you have a fortune that's missing and you have a fortune that can't be explained and they're connected by Ghislaine Maxwell, I don't know. Why is it that no hedge funds, what is it? They file form, I forget if it's 13F. There's certain forms that you have to file. Nobody's ever asked for these things. Who's his prime broker? Where has somebody gone over the prime brokerage? What are his trades? He would have to move the market if he was, doing a yard of euros or Swiss francs or who knows what, as like $1 billion. That would move the market. So there's no way you can fake retroactively a hedge fund of immeasurable size that trades currencies. I don't think he was a currency trader. He told me he was a currency trader.
So when you say a construct, who constructs? Who's the builder?
I don't know. I would imagine some version of the intelligence community. Sometimes somebody's cover gets blown. We have a very famous, unfortunate story of Eli Cohn with the Mossad, where Eli Cohn was an Egyptian Jew who was fitted with a backstory that he was an Argentinian playboy who'd made a fortune in Argentina, but was Arabic in origin. And then he moves to Damascus and he takes out an apartment where he holds orgies and becomes the best friend of Hafez al-Assad, right? And so that's an example of a story we know. We know how the intelligence communities of the world create people who don't really exist.
That degree of sophistication, I learned this from Daniel Schmachtenberger. We sat down and he's spent some time with particularly powerful people.
Yeah.
And he told me this really harrowing story of somebody who has both the desire and the means to treat themselves like an apex predator against their own kind. And they said so. They broke the fourth wall about this and said apex predators don't care about the prey, but they saw their own kind as prey. And I asked Daniel, how does it feel to sit opposite somebody who isn't rate limited by the resources, who can not only dream to have this, plus have the motivation or lack of virtue or integrity to go ahead and consider doing it, and then has the capacity, the assets to be able to enact it.
Sure.
And it's reminding me, it's giving me this same something. It feels like it's up on the top of my head. It's giving me some sort of a sense like that.
This was intended to be terrifying. It wasn't an accident. It was intended to be as fascinating as it could possibly be, which it was, and terrifying at the same time. And it achieved both objectives. I mean, I was given an opportunity to meet him again. I didn't know what to do. I mean, the other thing that I just found really weird is that he knew about my research, and it turned out that he was connected to my graduate department at Harvard. So he had a connection to the Harvard math department, unbeknownst to me.
All the same cast of characters, and all of these crimes now being investigated as crimes, and they all lead back to the same cast of characters. I just find this extraordinary. It has been a very busy start to the week here. Great set out there, and I hope you look forward to the series of interviews as well this week. There's many, many of them. See you all tomorrow on Channel 51 News.